Now, as you've probably heard, a gig featuring Graham Linehan, the writer of classic sitcoms like Father Ted and Black Books, was cancelled by an Edinburgh Fringe venue because of Linehan's views on the trans issue. The show was moved to a new venue, which also cancelled, and they ended up having to stage the gig outdoors outside the Scottish Parliament, which was quite amusing in some ways, yet also an indictment of a festival that's supposed to be all about free expression. And I'm joined now by the man who made the gig happen against all odds, co-founder of Comedy Unleashed, Andy Shaw. Andy, let's have a clap for Andy. He deserves it. Andy, good to catch up on national TV. Can you give us a quick summation of what happened from your perspective?
Yeah, well, originally, Andrew and I decided that we'd do a gig at very short notice at Edinburgh to put all the cancelled comedians on. So we thought we'd invite, Dapper Lass, Jerry Sadowitz, Alistair Williams, a whole bunch of people who've been cancelled over the years, and do a sort of uncancelled at Edinburgh. The problem we had was that we decided to do this about 3 weeks ago, which is a bit short notice when you're trying to book venues, get people organised at the height of the Edinburgh Fringe. So we did it a bit short notice, but luckily a guy who lives in Leith said, I can get a venue for you, which we got booked. And we got a bunch of people already in Edinburgh, plus Graham and Alistair to come up to Edinburgh to put the gig on. Then on Tuesday morning, 2 days before the gig, the venue put out a fairly punchy statement on Instagram saying that we were going to violate their space when they found out that Graham was the cancelled comedian that we'd sort of put some raps around. So we had 2 days to try and find another venue. And we did. On the Tuesday night, we found one. Then by Wednesday lunchtime, they'd cancelled as well. And in fact, they asked us to keep them out of the news because it'd become quite a big news issue by then. Which we promised to do. We tried to find another venue, and luckily loads of people rallied round in Edinburgh, which was really made it. And I've got to give real thanks, particularly to Matthew and Marion, because without them, this gig wouldn't have happened. And we nearly got a church hall. We nearly got a church. We nearly got the Edinburgh City Council chambers, but they couldn't get enough staff, and they needed to rearrange the chairs. All the parks, all the empty spaces were full of fringe acts, or we couldn't get police permission. And the only place where there was space and we could get permission was right outside the Holyrood Parliament. So it was quite unusual.
Yeah, and that wasn't even a political point, was it? You weren't trying to make a point by doing it outside Parliament. That was just where you ended up. And it wasn't, but it was just like the political point was maybe a bonus.
It was. I'm not a great believer in fate, Nick, but it did end up making accidentally a political point, which was really around freedom of speech and free expression in the arts, and sort of bringing back the original idea of the Fringe to celebrate all the wacky, the experimentative, the risk taking, and all the rest of it. And in fact, it's something that should be celebrated, particularly when so many people come from abroad to Edinburgh, and Edinburgh is so well known as a festival that celebrates free expression in the arts. It ended up making, by accident, a political point.
Yeah, and I said you should have won the Spirit of the Fringe Award, which if anyone doesn't know, that's like an award you get for... Because the Fringe is all based on sort of experimental stuff, people putting on shows in strange ways. So if anyone should have won the Spirit of the Fringe, it will be you. I don't think you actually will win it. And as you say, the venue, when they cancelled you, they actually used the word cancelled in massive block capitals in case anyone was in any doubt that cancel culture exists. And the other thing I thought was funny is that there was this conspiracy theory going around that you had planned all this, like they knew that they'd be cancelled and they'd get publicity. And I find that quite unlikely because it's co-founded by Andrew Doyle, and they're saying, they picked a venue that was LGBTQ friendly because they knew it would be cancelled. I'm like, really? A gay person knew it would be cancelled at a gay-friendly venue, and his master plan was that it would all be cancelled and they'd get more... So can you just confirm that was never your master plan?
It wasn't. I mean, it's just, if we'd have planned it, we'd have been much better organised. And in fact, it took, 2 days out of my life to try and reorganise things. And as I said, it was really only down to people in Edinburgh to sort of rally around and find other venues. And we were trying to catch up with the situation. We thought that it would be fun to reveal Graham at Edinburgh. It would be his Edinburgh debut. It's actually only the 5th gig that he's ever done. Since he was cancelled from his own musical, Father Ted the Musical, which you couldn't get on the West End, he's taken to stand-up. And Graham has been coming to the club in London really to hone his art as a stand-up, to really bring his skills as a comic writer into stand-up. And it's really beautiful to see because he brings a different sensibility to it. He sort of takes the little vignettes of everyday life and sort of gently twists them into absurdity. And it's nice bringing that into the live form of stand-up comedy where you can get an instant reaction. And we thought it would be, as I said, the original idea was to do a sort of cancelled comedian's gig, with everybody advertised. And then we thought, actually, we'll sort of unveil him at the gig and we can create a bit of sort of marketing mystery around it. As it happened, we sold out really quickly anyway. And we just thought, well, we'll just tell people. Okay. So it's just how things worked out.
Just really quickly, what was your view on the overall reaction? Because I saw some comedians defending it. There was Joe Caulfield saying, "I'm proud to be from Leith," whereas Henning Vane tweeted that it's a real mistake to celebrate the cancellation of a fellow comedian. And so comedians have been a bit less vocal than they normally are about how great this cancellation was. Maybe they're on the fence, waiting to see which way the wind blows. What do you think?
I think you're probably right. The thing that's really noticeable is that it's been in fact, it's been an international news story. And the silence from comedians, comedy critics, the industry is really astounding. And I think it shows how much it's become a corporate event. It's not so. I was speaking to somebody who's lived in Edinburgh for years and seen the Edinburgh Fringe develop. And it used to be lots of sort of amateurs in community halls, and it used to be much more of a sort of a community, gutsy amateur, people going and trying stuff out and experimenting. And now it's more of a sort of corporate funnel that people sort of build up their act, try and get it in front of the TV commissioners, try and get the good critics. And I think it's shut out all of that creativity. So I think, sort of accidentally, we've sort of brought the spirit of the Fringe back. And maybe we should do it all year round. In fact, the people in Edinburgh are now saying there's such a demand for it that we should set up a regular Comedy Unleashed night in Edinburgh. And we may well do that.
That would be brilliant. All right, thanks for joining us, Andy. Thanks. We can do a round of applause for Andy. That was co-founder of Comedy Unleashed, Andy Shaw. He's a total legend. And what do you think, guys? Do you follow this whole thing? Presumably you did.
Yeah, I did. And I did a video about it because I was so angry and disgusted at what actually happened to Graham. Comedians purport to be free thinkers. They purport to be people who punch up, who challenge authority. But what they are is the worst type of conformist possible. Petty-minded, shallow, only really interested in their own career progression, and actually will only pick a topic if it suits them and the industry itself. Basically, what I'm saying is, I'd go to that festival, I'd have the entire place napalmed, and there wouldn't be one innocent loss of life. So it'd be great, mate. That's what I'm saying.
I wish you wouldn't hold back, Francis. This is free speech nation. Man, I thought I felt like that, but you're even more... You said all that stuff on Joe Rogan as well, which is hilarious. Yeah. Francis was on the Joe Rogan podcast, and all the comedians were so mad that he told it like it is. It is a very conformist industry now, and that's one reason I sort of distanced myself from it. But Paul, what do you think?
Well, the one thing I found most interesting was those that spoke up for the cancellation. And the people who have no fear of cancellation itself are those that never believe they could ever be cancelled because they believe they're on the right side of history or the right side of the argument, the right side of the debate. Comedy and art itself is not about that. It's not about whether you're right or wrong. It's about what you create, how you inspire, the reaction you get from it. If you just had the same comedy week in, week out, that talked about, I don't know, pronouns, for instance.
You'd have Channel 4.
You'd have Channel 4.
Yeah. All right, well, that seems like a good ending.